presents Speak Your Truth with yours truly, Vivett Dukes. Hope everyone is doing well tonight, as I wish you every evening, as well as can be expected and even better. For I want what is best for you, what's best for all of us. And tonight I have a guest who is clearly someone who is about what is best for his people, what is best for humankind. That is none other than Mr. Nehemiah Frank. He is the founder and editor in chief of the Black Wall Street Times. He is also a fellow delegate and council member at the National Parents Union. And he is someone I consider to be a really close friend and a brother whom I respect so much. So thank you for being here, Nehemiah.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You're welcome. You see, my voice got all serious when I was talking about you because that's just the type of respect that you command, sir.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate those words of kindness.
I mean them. There was a phrase that I would hear my parents say, and they would tell me to be a credit to your race. Be a credit to your race. And you are a credit to our race.
Wow.
And I really need you to know that. Who I introduced you as is just a tidbit of who you are. But I have to say, I know you as the founder and editor in chief of the Black Wall Street Times. I read your work before I ever met you in person. And I was reading your blogs like for years.
Wow, it's crazy.
Met you. Yep. And always like, this brother is on. This is good. It's good stuff. So how did you start? How does one become a founder and editor in chief of the Black Wall Street Times? How did that come about for you?
I'd say like Michelle Obama, she never thought that she would be the first lady of the United States, right? Mm-hmm. I never thought for a second that I would be a writer, let alone a founder and editor in chief of a publication that's growing. Mm-hmm. When I was in school, I was the student that was always behind. My parents and I moved around a lot. My father was in the military, so I went to tons of different schools. Mm-hmm. And I just felt behind. Year after year, I would fall behind. But it wasn't until I got to high school that I had my first Black male teacher. Mm-hmm. And man, it was just a different flow. I was like, wow, look at this Black. And he wasn't a PE teacher, right? Or an athletic coach. He was a history teacher. Wow. And the way that he taught history just, man, it really piqued my interest in, just everything that he was about and all of the things that he was discussing in class and teaching us. I'd say that was probably the first time I really paid attention in class. Was when I saw someone who looked like me teaching at the front of the classroom. He would always dress professional too. Mm-hmm. So, that left an impression on me.
You are confirming so many of the things that I do as an educator. So first of all, I really fight intensely to have more Black teachers in our classrooms because I know the impact that it has. I had my first Black teacher when I was in the 9th grade. It was like a half semester home economics course that I had like every other day, maybe. So I didn't get to learn a lot from Ms. Lee. And then I didn't have a Black teacher again until I went to college.
Wow.
So that really was something that I missed out on.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I know the impact that just when my students see me, like you said, get dressed, like I'm teaching remotely, I'm still dressed every day, like, because I know that I'm an example to them. So it's important.
That's so good. And to add on the importance of Black educators, when I went to college, that was the second time that I had a teacher, right, of color. And man, I love her name. Her name was LaRue Finney. Oh. And she was an English professor.
Come on now.
And let me tell you something. The first day I walked into her classroom, and this was an honors English class. Mm-hmm. And and just to be frank, I was horrible at writing.
What?
How did I end up in this honors English class, right? And I was a horrible writer. Um, I had just worked really, really hard once I got to college. After having that black male educator, it kind of pushed me to want to be better. And I would definitely say that, watching the Obamas move through the White House definitely left an impression upon me too, because they were black excellence, and I wanted to get as close to that as possible.
Oh, yes.
What success looks like, at least to me, right? Um, and so when I went to college in Chicago, I worked really hard, and I wanted to try this honors English class. And the first day, LaRue is at the front of the class, Professor LaRue, and she says, "Some of y'all don't belong in here." And I was like, "Woo, this is about to be some serious mess, right? She's about to hurt somebody up in here." And she said, "Some of y'all must have not read the syllabus, that you must have a 3 point something. I think it was a 3.25 to be in her honors English class."
Mm.
And I think it was probably like 25% of the students got up and walked out of the classroom. And that was the toughest year I have ever had academically. And it wasn't because the work was hard. It was because she demanded excellence.
Yes.
And I was like, if I had a LaRue Finney in my life, from kindergarten till, I wouldn't even have been at this little junior college, right? I would have been some, who knows? I probably would have went to Ivy League school, or if I had a teacher that saw in me before I even saw myself.
And that can tell you, that can
Yeah.
put into you. So imagine from the first day you entered into school, you were told, "You're amazing. Do you know how brilliant you are?
Yeah.
You're a king. Do you know where you come from?" And
Right.
that kept on being reiterated year after year after year, because that's what other students get.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
They get that. They're being told that, "Come on, you can do it. I believe in you." Or they get that benefit of the doubt. "Oh, I understand why I didn't have your work. It's okay. Don't worry. Bring it in tomorrow." Do our kids get that? Do Black children get that? They don't get that. They really don't, unless they have those spots of teachers throughout their educational careers who do that for them. But it's just very challenging.
Yeah.
So, has Professor LaRue, have you kept in touch with her? Does she
Oh,
know
yeah,
what you're
yeah.
doing?
She is very proud of where her student landed. Um, yeah, we definitely are still in contact for sure.
I would imagine so. And that is a wonderful feeling to see, like, literally see the fruits of her labor come to fruition, and to see you. Oh, Nehemiah, I haven't seen you since January, although I'm not really like physically next to you, but it
Yeah.
is really good just to see you. You look well. You look well, sir.
You look good too. I'm happy that you're teaching and still making an impact on these students.
Thank you. It's trying. They're trying me, but I'm invested, and I know how important it is. And that's where God has me, to be honest with you. Yeah. As I believe that's where He has you too, in seeing the work that you're doing. You're a resident here at MPU. You are our resident historian, all things Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma. How did you learn so much about? You are the one who taught me about Tulsa. To
Wow.
be honest with you, 1921. I knew of it, I heard of it, but to know the depths of it and to even want to study more, it's through knowing you that really sparked that in me. How did you learn so much?
So the first time this idea that something had happened in my hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma, was when I was a child. My grandfather had set us down. He turned off the television. It was a serious moment. My cousins and myself, we were all sitting on the floor listening to him, trying to understand what he was trying to tell us, which was there was this fire that took place and that the white people had attacked our Black community. And at the time we were kids. We were just like, look, we don't really care. We just want to go outside and play.
Right.
That was it. And I think he probably understood that. And so that's what happened. And for years, no one had ever told me about the massacre. As I had mentioned earlier, my father was in the military, so we traveled everywhere. I never heard my family members talking about it. In schools, never, ever heard that something so horrific could happen in this country to Black people, besides institutional slavery. But when I was in college in Chicago, I attended Trinity United Church of Christ, which is the church that the Obamas attended before they went to the White House. Yeah. There's other prominent African Americans that had attended the church over the years. Like I think Oprah was another person. Common, he I believe he goes to church there now, and then other folks. It's this really incredible place. And so that was the place that I learned about my history in Tulsa, in Chicago. So I remember the Sunday as if it were yesterday. I was sitting in the center pew, a few rows back from the pulpit, and Dr. Pastor Jeremiah Wright was preaching. And I don't know if you remember him, but he was the one that kind of got into this whole whirlwind of controversy. But he was telling the truth, and that's a whole nother story. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and continue. But he had mentioned, the crazy thing, it was like I had tunnel vision because he was preaching from the book of Nehemiah.
Come on now.
And that's my name. Yeah. And so every time he would say my name, I'll get this weird feeling. And then like some of the members of the church would kind of look at me and kind of smile, talking about you. He wasn't really talking about me. He was talking about the character Nehemiah from the Bible. But then he started talking about Tulsa. And he was talking about the Black excellence that existed in my community. Wow. And it was just like, man, that's where I'm from. I never knew that we were like that. We were that. We had doctors and lawyers, our own school district that produced students that could go to Langston University. I always wondered throughout the years why I was one of the lucky Black people. And it wasn't until, and I hope I don't get emotional on your show, but it wasn't until like just maybe a few years ago that I realized that that it had dawned on me that I was a third generation college, graduate, third and Black. I went to college. My dad went to college. My grandfather went to college. Wow. Right. That's not the norm. But we were from Black Wall Street, and there it was a normal thing. Black folks had grand pianos in their houses. And we're talking about during Jim Crow, this 2 generations after the liberation of Black people, their bodies, right?
So this is still in the late 1800s. We're just context to go
right into the 20th century. So the early like the 1920s.
Okay.
That these Black people build this incredible space, this township. Like we had a Black police officer. My great-great-grandfather co-owned a building with the first Black police officer. Like there was a Black man who owned the Stratford Hotel, and this building had like 100 rooms in it. We had movie theaters, 2 of them. It was just like a Black Mecca, a paradise, a place to feel safe. So we thought, right? And I learned about that in Chicago from, Dr. Wright. But then he told the story of how in a matter of 48 hours, really just one night, that the community was completely destroyed by a racist white mob who used a false story to ignite an entire attack on our community. So the 36 square blocks that, my community, my ancestors built 2 generations out of slavery was wiped out in one night. And it's never been the same. Like the generational trauma that's passed down is just, it seems like it's never going to go away. And that's the reason why I fight so hard. It's the reason why I named the Black Wall Street Times, my company, after, you know, my community. And a lot of people, they don't even know that Black Wall Street, that name came from Booker T. Washington himself. He came to Greenwood, which is the name of the community, and he saw how organized and how cooperative the Black folks worked together. Mm-hmm. And he said, wow, this looks like the Negro Wall Street of America. And the name stuck, Black Wall Street.
And what is there now in Greenwood?
So now, just like a lot of other places, like Harlem, completely, it's becoming gentrified. There's a university where Langston University was supposed to be the epicenter of the community. They put a majority white college there, Oklahoma State University, that doesn't teach its students really about the massacre, not until just recently that they started a class, but that had to be pushed by a mentor of mine's to, you know, allow the excellence in the horror of Black Wall Street be taught in the classroom.
So you're telling me even in the state of Oklahoma, where Black Wall Street existed, they are not teaching students about Black Wall Street?
They just started teaching students about Black Wall Street 2 years ago. And that's because we were doing a lot of, like, I don't know if you want to call it shaming. But I mean, it's a shame that you're not teaching the whole history of America. And by not doing so, you're perpetuating racism by not doing that. So,
and how was this history preserved? I know from your story through oral storytelling, which is our African Indigenous way to pass stories down from generation to generation. But were there any physical artifacts left that either from your family or any families that survived? Did any family? So obviously some did, because you are here as living proof of it. But I mean, if you could just give us a little more of a synopsis. I'm just so interested in this. And there are some people who this may be the first time they're learning about this. Maybe some of you, like I, saw it on Lovecraft Country not too long ago, and the 9th episode. Maybe this is something new in the whole resurgence of our push for our Black Lives Mattering, that more of American history is coming out, because Black history is American history. The only reason we have to call it Black history is because it just wasn't being taught, period.
Right.
And so we started like, well, this is our history. But the truth is, it's American history, and we all suffer when we don't learn it.
Absolutely.
So that's why I really would like you to just take a little time and tell us a bit more of what you know, because this broadcast can serve for future generations to come back and listen to and learn from.
Yeah. So the Historical Society, they kept a lot of the, the evidence that this place existed, but there are also pictures. My family, we have one picture of, my great-grandfather's shop that was passed down. And then at the library in Tulsa, you can go through the archives and see who owned what businesses and where they lived, their homes. But by walking down the Wall Street now, or walking through Greenwood, there's little evidence that such a place could have ever existed. It's really sad. Now, because we're getting close to the centennial, which is going to be from May 31st to June 1st. Which is the centennial of the massacre. They're building a huge museum, which is going to serve as, a space for education for people to learn about the history of Black Wall Street, the massacre, and then the resilience that came afterwards. And that project is being erected by Local Projects, which is a New York-based architectural firm. And that particular firm, they're amazing. They've done the 9/11. They designed the 9/11 memorial. They designed the EGI, Equal Justice Initiative memorial that Brian Stevenson is the brainchild behind in Montgomery, Alabama, which it serves as a lynching memorial.
Lynching memorial, yeah.
Yeah. And so they're coming to Tulsa to help us put our museum together as well.
I would love to come. Hopefully things will be in a better place in terms of traveling and stuff. I would really like to be there for that. And I encourage others, if you are able to, get out and learn more about our history. We cannot expect that it's going to be taught to us. It's not going to be. We have to seek it out, and we have to make sure that it is taught and learned by our children. And so I'm very grateful even to have this platform to be able to share with I'm speaking at the tens and thousands that will see this and at least be intrigued like I was. Like, I want to learn more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, this leads me, Nehemiah, to just voting and the lives that were lost just for us to be able to execute this right that we have to vote. Because as I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, wow, for all those thousands, tens of thousands of people that perished senselessly, that were victims of domestic terrorism, who I'm sure they did not have a thriving community like that without voting. I would imagine there were local officials who were also esteemed Black men and women. If for nothing else, for their honor,
Absolutely.
we need to go out and vote.
Right, without a doubt. In Oklahoma, before 1907, white Americans were terrified that Oklahoma would not only become Indian territory, but they were afraid that it would become a Black state, because history has not told us that there were 50 Black towns in Oklahoma, and Black folks were going there they were coming from every direction. Because in order to have a Black Wall Street, you're going to have towns to support, the epicenter of this mini Black metropolis, right? And so we had black farmers, and Black,
everything.
Yeah, everything that was needed. And so those farmers would bring their fruits and vegetables and their cow meat to the Black Wall Street. Because we couldn't get it from the white folks during that time. We had to make our own. We had to draw our own circle, right? And build from the inside. And that was a threat to any white person who was ambitious enough to want to also have their American dream, or that they felt that their American dream was somehow denied to them because these Black folks seemed to be building faster than they were.
Reminds me of Rosewood.
Yeah, or they would have things that they shouldn't have because they're Black.
But isn't that the same thing going on now?
Oh, without a doubt, for sure, without a doubt.
Not staying in your lane. What are you doing in this neighborhood?
Right.
Your car, and it's like, well, am I not allowed to have anything nice? What is that? Something that's just reserved for you?
Right. And so those 50 towns, what happened to them? Well, it was racial terror that happened to those towns. Black folks were running for their lives because the Klan was rampant. It ran rampant as it did in Mississippi. We always hear about Mississippi, but Arkansas and Oklahoma, they were lynching Negroes off of bridges with their children. There's a famous lynching in Oklahoma from, I believe it was 1918, where this 14-year-old son and his mother were lynched on a bridge in Okemah. They were lynched. And that served as a way to scare and terrorize Black folks to get out of the state, because the white folks wanted to have political power there, right? Um, and that's the reason why we had in 2016 every single county go red for Donald Trump. Every single county
In the state of
in the entire state
went completely red.
So within 100 years' time, Black voters are completely disenfranchised due to racial terror.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why Donald Trump won Oklahoma outright.
And this is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, everyone under the sound of my voice, this is the reason why you need to get out and vote. I'm going to do a shameless plug right now for our Every Family Votes campaign that we have here at the National Parents Union. You have to vote. This disenfranchisement is still going on. This fear of Black, Indigenous people of color actually uniting and coming together and using our mighty vote to get the elected officials and the things that we need for our communities to happen, that is against the agenda of the status quo.
Absolutely.
And so if at this point you are still struggling about whether you're going to vote, whether you're not going to vote, I am really hopeful that something you will hear here tonight is going to help push you over that edge into the point where you're saying, I need to vote, I must vote, and you take your children, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, auntie, uncle, niece, nephew, dog, cat, bird, I don't care who it is, bring them with you and vote. We have to shift. We went 100 years in one state, and it went from a Black metropolis to a completely red state. This is a really big issue that needs to be addressed. So every family has to vote. It is necessary at this point. It's not even a question. It's a mandate. You got to vote, or else history is bound to repeat itself.
Right. Absolutely. If not as in not one form, in another form, it will repeat itself.
We might not have grandfather laws anymore for voting, but isn't there still disenfranchisement going on? Aren't people still being turned away? Aren't polling locations just suddenly changing at the last minute, causing people to not be able to get to them? There's so much there's so many issues going on with voting in this country, with polling, but we still need to get out and vote because we can change it. We are the only ones who can change it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I think that when it comes to underfunded schools,
Yeah.
you have schools where students aren't reading at grade level. It's a real thing. And when they grow up, if they don't have the credentials to get the type of job that they'll be able to provide for their families, they're more likely to commit crimes out of desperation, right? To either keep up with the status quo or to just simply feed themselves. Oklahoma has the highest incarceration rate of women in the entire world.
Say that again, please.
Oklahoma has the highest incarceration rate for women in the entire world. But not only that, Oklahoma incarcerates more Black people than any other state per capita in the United States, which means in the entire world, since the United States is 25%, holds 25% of the world's prison population.
Yeah.
So just think about how much damage that does to families and to, a voter block. You've disenfranchised women by incarcerating more women than any other state. You disenfranchise Black people, Black families by incarcerating them disproportionately in comparison to the other demographics in the state.
Yeah.
And then you give them false information. You don't give them all that they need to be informed, that they can vote. So a lot of Oklahomans who have been incarcerated, who are out, they believe that they can't vote.
And they can.
And they can.
And they can. Wow. And we know that when any family member is incarcerated, the family also pays heavily financially, emotionally, mentally. And to add to that, when a woman is incarcerated, when a woman who has children is incarcerated, then we bring other systems into play, like the foster care system. Now, ACS gets involved. Now you have children further taken away from family. Now you have grandparents who have to raise another generation of children. Now you have families that may already have been struggling financially, having to pay exorbitant prices for phone calls and for commissary. It is a vicious cycle and it keeps families apart.
And this is how, like, why it's so important, voting. So in Oklahoma, we currently have a ballot initiative called State Question 805. And State Question 805 would allow, for lesser harsh sentences for petty crimes such as stealing. Like, for instance, one Black man was incarcerated for 33 years for writing $400 worth of bad checks. $400 worth of bad checks, and he spent 33 years of his life in a prison cell. Unbelievable. So that was his. That's just one story. Another story is that a mother, who was stealing a jacket for her child, and stealing toys for her child, ended up spending, not even for herself, right? It wasn't like she was stealing jewelry,
Right.
some fancy Chanel glasses or something like that. We're talking about toys and a jacket, and she spent 15 years behind bars for that. Just think about the impact that had on that child.
That is a big human rights violation, Christy Joyce. I'm so glad you said that. You took the words right out of my mouth. How does that punishment match the offense? It simply
It doesn't.
and
Yeah.
no one is here saying, because I can definitely hear people saying, "Oh, well, if you do the crime, do the time." That's like the famous buzz phrase.
Right.
You do the crime, you do the time. But really and truly think about that. Is 15 years of incarceration the price that should be paid for $400 worth of goods? Where in some communities, if that happens, you'll get perhaps community service.
Right.
Perhaps you may have to go in the judge's chambers and have a severe talking to. Perhaps you're going to go now and work in the very community that you harmed in a restorative justice way. Those penalties make sense.
Right.
15 years. And the thing is, the penalties are not being doled out evenly, ladies and gentlemen. The penalties are disproportionately doled out in severe, harsh ways to Black and Brown people, men, women, and children. It starts in the schools. This is another reason why you need to vote. It's all going to come back to it for me. You know why? I'm not just talking about voting for the president. I'm talking about voting on your local school boards, the school boards that will hire the teachers who work in your school, the school boards that will make pertinent decisions about what your child is taught, where they're taught, when they're taught, why, how, everything. You need to vote in these elections on the local area. Local, state, and federal, they all play a part. But these are the types of things. Are you voting for judges? Judges are up for re-election now. Do you know the judge? Because they're the ones who will hit that gavel and make that decision. Are you aware of your senators and the policies that they are yaying or naying? I mean, I don't know if we're getting it, Nehemiah.
So if state question 805 passes,
Okay.
it'll save the state of Oklahoma $200 million. It'll save the taxpayers $200 million. And so, well, what can you do with $200 million? Well, you could help out schools. You could invest in mental health professionals for schools. You can give the teachers the raises that they've been advocating for, for the last decade. But
We can
not a
get
lot of folks are informed about it.
no, we can get some mental health. We can talk about mending those adverse child experiences that have happened as a result of mamas and daddies being taken and put in prison. I mean, let's try ways to restore. We can provide the mental health and the emotional support that is needed, because whole communities, I'm not talking about, oh, and this house has an issue, that house has an issue. You came on this broadcast saying tonight that the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, is still very much reeling from a domestic terrorism that happened, a terrorist attack that happened 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So come on. If we don't think healing is needed, we want to talk about reparations. That's somewhere to start.
Absolutely. Earlier you had mentioned about you mentioned about Lovecraft Country.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have learned about Black Wall Street and what happened from, these television series. Mm-hmm. Another one was The Watchmen. And to America, everyone's like, oh, wow, and then people are looking up to see what's going on. Our website had a huge influx of subscribers after those 2 episodes aired. Mm-hmm. But the trauma, the triggering from my community when we saw that, I remember when my mom and me were sitting down on the couch and we were watching The Watchmen, HBO or television series with Regina King, and the massacre scene. It was the first time we had ever seen a high quality production of what it possibly looked like during the destruction of our community. And it haunted me. Like my mom, we didn't say anything at all. And we had a few tears, and it was just kind of like, all right, I'll see you later. I'm going home. But then the second time, which was when we saw Lovecraft's interpretation of the 1921 race massacre, for me, like I was just in tears and I was angry. Probably because Trump had already come to, and I'm not trying to hate on anybody that is a Trump supporter. That's not what this conversation is about. But just the dismissiveness of how the city and how the country has treated us Black folks. And then to see my community, people try to tell the story like, and I'm thankful for them, but it was painful. It was triggering. I didn't have the same experience that other Black people or other people, period, had when they were watching it, because that was my community that they were showing, in a Hollywood production. Mm-hmm. And we see the names of these businesses and we're like, that really existed. And those families, they still live. Like they're still there. Mm-hmm. Like some of the kids, their last names, I would say their last names, the first day of school and be like, oh, look, this kid is kin to those people that own that business.
Does that child know that?
Woo, yes.
So does that child know that? They know. I need for those children to know that. They need to know where they come from, who they come from, because the narrative being fed to them is that you ain't nothing. You don't from nowhere. You're a bum. You're no good. You're going to end up in jail. All of this stuff is fed. Look at you.
You know, the interesting thing, I'm so happy that you brought that up. So the school that I worked at was Sankofa,
Mm,
School of the Performing Arts. But we weren't only known for giving a good performance. We had the highest academics in the state for charter schools. But we took the same test as everybody took, including the public school students.
mm-hmm.
And these are Black children running circles around the highest achieving students at these public schools. And it's a majority Black school. And I'm not a segregationist, but the thing that we did at our Black school, and it's unique. I do want to say that the school is unique because the families that attend the school, a lot of those students' families go back, you know, like decades. Like we've all known each other's families for forever,
They're
and
invested.
so there's an expectation when you walk in because you know that like I could see your grandmother or your somebody at the grocery store and I can say, hey, yeah, well, this happened, and we're already comfortable with each other because we're family.
Right.
That's how tight my community is. Like folks have married each other's families and stuff like that. So for the most part, we're pretty tight. So it's easy to keep classroom management was pretty easy there. But also not only the order, right? But oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
the Black pride was loud. You would walk into the school, and I wish I had time to be a teacher again. Because that was the greatest gift I could ever give, and it was a gift to me too, right? To be able to do that. Um, the floors were red, the walls were green and black, and all of the African Pan Africanist colors were everywhere. It was a bright, vibrant place,
Mm-hmm.
and the walls were are because it's still there. The walls are decorated with Black excellence. They see what they can be and what they are supposed to be on those walls,
Yes.
and it's just, I mean, you don't even have to say anything. It's like you know that you're loved and that the expectation is high. Higher than you may even be able to reach, but as long as try to aim for the stars, you'll land on the moon, as they say.
Yes.
Um, and the every day there was an African proverb that the students would write in their journals. The whole school. I mean, it was just
Mm-hmm.
uh, Miss Brown. She's the founder. That woman right there. She taught me how to love my culture more than I probably would have ever gotten. Those kids right there, they know that they are loved and that is the holistic approach that should be taught, that should be followed in every school. What they've done there is absolutely amazing.
I would love to learn more about this school. And as we are in this phase of reimagining schools and in this phase of, schools totally shifting, we need strong models to follow. And it sounds like Sankofa is one of those models
Yeah, same
where
with Deborah Brown. Hmm.
school is feeding the children, the school is a community effort. The school feels like family. That is the culture you want for the school that your child is in. If
Right,
you are not feeling that, if you walk into the school and you feel like you're being dismissed, if you're not getting outreach, if you're looking at your child's work like, what is this? Recently, then something's wrong.
right.
Youngest daughter is in a local community college where we live, and I was asking her, since like last week, how are your classes, going? Tell me what is going on. And she was saying, oh, I'm learning about Phyllis Wheatley. And this is in an African American studies course. I said, "Oh, you've learned about her before." She says, "Mom, it seems like there's just a group of Black people that we can learn about, and then that's it."
Mhm.
So I've been learning about, and she started rattling off the names. She's like, "But there are so much more than them, and I know it, but not from school. I know it from you and from traveling and other things." So I think for our parents out there, you really need to, it would behoove you and your child to really take a stock now more than ever at what your child is being taught. You don't need to be an expert in curriculum to be able to assess whether you're or not your child, their history, your values are in a agree are being taught in the school. And if they're not, then no, it might be time to make some changes. I think there's a lot we can learn from Black Wall Street. And one of those things is, like I see in Chinatowns, there's nothing wrong with having your own. Me having my own should not upset you or offend you. Why? There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Nothing wrong in Crown Heights with Hasidic Jews having their own neighborhood, their own ambulances, their own yeshivas, their own synagogues, their own restaurants, their own fruit markets and fruit. What is wrong with that? The problem I have is it seems that anytime people of color decide to have our own, everyone's up in arms about it. And
Every,
I have to really question, well,
especially white people. I'm just
what,
gonna hit it out.
what is that about?
Yeah.
Why are you so upset? As Maya Angelou said, does my sassiness upset you? What is the problem? And
I think that it's definitely monetary.
yes.
They didn't like slaves running away because it affected their bottom line, right? Um, and if Black students, even if they're performing better, right, under Black leadership, under schools that will teach them about their culture, those dollars are exiting the public school system, which is where the majority of the white students are. Um, and I think that is one of the main reasons why folks are upset about school choice. Um, and I think it is a misguided anger for
Mhm.
sure.
I think when we think about voting, and this is what I try to do, educate myself. Think about what are the issues that really matter to me. Holistically. I don't want to be a single issue voter because that's problematic. But I do want to look at the totality of what's important to me and then weigh my values against not only what the candidate is saying, you got to look at their record.
Right.
How have they been voting? And that is public knowledge. Go on the website, go look up your state and your senator, and you can see the history of how she or he or they have voted for the entirety of their career
Right.
in government. I think it's important to see not just what you're noticing on the commercials. You got to go deeper than that. And if you're not sure what to do or how to get there, we have a toolkit. If you're like, there are tools there for you to help you, but to just remain ignorant of certain facts, I have a problem with that. It's not helping us, and it's time we all get it together, come together, unify, and get it together.
And
For some,
sometimes you have to break from tradition. You may have to break from tradition. It's
mhm,
about information is so powerful. That's how you fight. You fight for a better quality of life is with information. And I learned that from, I don't know how old the baby was, but she must have been like 10 or 11. A little kid said that on an earlier show today, that we fight with information. And I'm like, that is so simple. This little baby then said that. I'm keeping that forever. And so that's how the voters, that's how you got to make educated decisions with information. And not all Black folks are kinfolk, right?
all skin folk and kinfolk. Come on
All skin folk ain't kinfolk, right?
now. Nope.
We have a school board member in Tulsa. She's a Black woman, and nobody wants to, you know, unelect a Black woman. But at this point in time, she's not doing our children justice, um, and she's gonna have to go because her values don't align with the community
And the community votes her in or out.
or
It's
out.
not an appointment, it's an election.
Right.
So these are the things you need to attend. And if you can attend as a community, get together and say, all right, I can go to this meeting, you go to that meeting, strategize. I was walking in the park the other day, my husband and I, we saw a group of elders just sitting in the park talking, and he and I started to create a narrative like, oh, I wonder what they're doing. And we were like, that ain't nothing else but the elders having a good old fashioned sit down. They're strategizing. They can't get into the church basement anymore because COVID closed it. So they went
Right.
into the park, and you could see they were having a serious talk. And although we imagined what they could have been talking about, it felt good to think and to know that that is who we come from. That is our way. Community is our way. The
Right.
divisiveness, the separation, that was done to us. That is not who we are inherently. And we need to get back to the essence of who we are, to our humanity. Once we get back to that place, it's not going to just happen. But once we are actively working to get back to that place, we're going to see results and changes. But if
Right.
we continue to just kind of be lost in the wind, and we know why. I'm not saying like, oh, well, what happened? We've talked about some of the things that have happened and are happening. So we're not, clueless to the facts, but we have to keep going. We have to rise up, but we have to address the issues and grow from them. Because if not, I don't even want to finish that sentence. If not, look where we are now. Y'all not afraid? I mean, I'm not saying afraid like, but y'all don't see that things are really off. Things are off.
Yeah. Bad. It's bad.
Yeah, it's bad, and something has to change. You know. One of the things that we have going on here, and I know you've been so instrumental in the planning of this. Nehemiah Frank's also a master community organizer. He's being very humble here tonight with things that he does and just his acumen and his prowess, mental prowess. He's a very intelligent man. You are a master community organizer, and you've been very instrumental in planning the National Parents Union's town hall clapback that is coming up. Can you tell us some more about that, please?
Yeah. So the National Parents Union is National Clapback is going to release a poll, a parent poll. For the first time, we really get to hear what these parents have been thinking about, what they have to say, because too often in public schools or even charter schools or whatever type of school your kid is in, we don't the parents' voice is often rejected or dismissed because you're not a teacher, you're not an expert, and so whatever you say, can't. You're not the professional. We are the professionals, even if those people don't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what's going to be taking place on November 5th. We're going to be endorsing it. We're planning our own National Parents Union Town Hall to introduce NPU to more of the Black Wall Street Times readers. And I'm hoping that they will join us on November 5th, which is 2 days after the November election.
Mm-hmm. It's in the chat for those of you who are in the chat. I've put the website, www.nationalparentsunion.org. You will see a tab there for registration. It literally takes 2 minutes. It's free. Please go and register because, okay, my thing is many people are going to complain. This is not going right. That's not going right. I get it. We vent. But then what's the next step?
Right.
This is a forum where you can not only vent into the ether, you can vent in a constructive way and have it be heard by people who are actually making changes in education on
Right.
behalf of marginalized people.
Right.
I make no apologies for why I'm here, why I am a part of the National Parents Union, because they are one of the few platforms that said, oh, you want to help families who are facing incarceration? Come on. That's why I'm here. I make no apologies for it. If you are a family who is dealing with incarceration of a loved one and your child is suffering as a result of that or just not thriving, and that's the thing, you don't have to be suffering like languishing. You're just not thriving. And you've been put here to thrive, not just survive.
Right, but I want to add this because I think you brought up a really good point. I mean, you might not be suffering yet, or your child might not be suffering yet, but if we don't get these schools together
Mhm.
and come up with a better plan on how to educate the next generation, we're not gonna be the new kid on the block. Our country isn't, as you had mentioned, our country isn't doing well. And one of the things that NPU has done well, even while being birthed amid a global pandemic, right, is provide critical information on what parents are thinking and how they're thinking, and what works for one kid doesn't work for another kid or for another family. Uh, and I think that that's the key. And you had mentioned about organizing.
Mhm.
The only way that Black Wall Street became possible is through organization. There had to be some sort of inner system set up, right, to create that Black ecosystem, that a healthy Black ecosystem. Well, in order to create healthy communities, regardless of race, um, there has to be cooperation, there has to be organization, there has to be communication. Um, and that's what NPU does. It creates a web of parent activists and anyone who cares about improving the lives of students and of our communities. It creates a strong web, a network that can help propel you
Yeah.
into impel us all into a healthier future.
Come to the parent town hall. I'm not going to even push you to be a member now because I'm not put. We're not here pushing, and like I don't have to sell it to you. I'm already in it. I know what I'm doing, and I wouldn't promote this if it wasn't something that I know is necessary. One of the stats that came out that really resonated with me because I'm seeing it is that 50% of parents are concerned about their children's mental health state as a result of the increased amount of remote instruction that they are receiving. Now, I teach 100% remotely. I can tell you, even for myself, Zoom fatigue is real. The hours in front of the screen, the not getting up to walk over time. If I'm telling you that that's affecting me as an adult woman, what is that doing to young children? Some young children who they're being introduced to school via the screen. You have to know that you might not see the ramifications right now, but there will be some ramifications. Isn't it better to be on top of that, ahead of that curve, to be proactive instead of reactive? That's
Right.
what we're asking you to do. Come out and be part of the solution, not part of the demise. We have enough things against us. We need to change the perspective and the narrative of education. It's just, I mean, that's just the long and short of it. There's no way, there's no other way around it.
Another thing, and I know like we're coming down to the wire here, um, is that so it's free. It doesn't cost any money, so you don't lose anything. But think about that. Like the Black Wall Street Times, a lot of people have said, well, how is your model going to work? How are you going to get paid, to continue doing this work and providing a free service? Well, I believe that access is the new civil right. That's another reason why I joined NPU, because our values align. We're not going to charge people that have been economically disenfranchised. That's not how you pull society up. We don't do that. But to the generous folks that have and that donate, it becomes a great gift. So that's the gift that we can give: access to whoever is out there and who needs a network such as NPU.
Writing in the chat, just thank you so much for being here tonight, Nehemiah, because you just have a calm stillness about you and a resolution, and you're just like laser beam focused. From what I've read from you, and then having the privilege to meet you in person and get to know you in this work now, you're consistent. And your consistency in your leadership is what our community needs. And I thank you for that. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way about you. And I say, we give people flowers when they die. People say so many wonderful things to say at funerals. Did you tell them that while they were alive? Tomorrow's not promised. And I want you to know, my brother, you are so appreciated and you have my respect. I'm going to end it the way I started it. You have so much respect from me. And thank you for everything you're doing. If you do nothing else, you've helped so many. And it's just beautiful, Nehemiah. And I know you feel it. I know that you know the weight that's on you, but you take it and you bear it and you know that it's not just about you. And I thank you for that. Thank
Thank you,
you so
sis.
much.
I appreciate those kind words.
You're welcome. Thank you to everyone who took the time out of your schedules to be here with us tonight. We don't rehearse any of this. We just talk. You're just privileged to sit in on a conversation amongst friends, activists, advocates, ones who care. And thank you for your time, for being here. For as my father always says, time lost can never be regained. So the fact that you took the time out to be here with us for this hour, it truly does mean a lot. We hope that you have heard something here that has stirred up your spirit and that is going to cause you to make decisions in a direction that will benefit us all as a human race. And with that, I leave you for tonight. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see you again on Thursday. The National Parents Union presents Speak Your Truth. Until then, be well. Good night.